Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community.
The American presidential election is less than 500 hours away, and with so little time left in his presidency, President Biden made his first ever trip as a president to Africa. And he didn't go throughout Africa. He went to one country. It was a quick trip. Why? What might it have to do with a conclave that was just held north of us in Miami by the precious metals industry and the wider great power conflict that is taking place around the world, in the Ukraine most notably, but across the Red Sea and in Africa as well. I'm going to talk about all of that and how it ties to the ultimate form of money, the most ancient one, gold, precious metals, commodities. My name is Emil Kalinowski. I'm broadcasting to you live from the studios of Radio Cayman on 89.9 on the FM dial in Grand Cayman and 93.9 in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Simon Caudry is out on assignment. I am filling in for him. We all know what that means, out on assignment. No, I actually don't know what he's doing, but I'm always happy to speak to all of you. Let's talk about President Biden. Incredible, ladies and gentlemen. He just took a trip to Angola. It's the first time he visited Africa as a president. And as you know, if you've been following the news, earlier this year he was in a debate against former President Trump. I believe that was in May. And he came, or June? Yeah, May, June. And he came out and he did very poorly. He looked ill. He looked old. He didn't look firm. My heart went out to him. It was a sad moment. He seems to have recovered since then, but obviously he is, what's the word? I don't want to say old, but he is tired. He's done a lot of work. His presidency is nearly over, just less than 500 hours to go. And yet he took a trip to Africa to visit one country, Angola. What in the world is going on? What a very strange visit. And what it has to do is with great power politics, and I will tie it into commodities in just a second, and gold. What is taking place in Angola and the broader sub-Saharan region is that there is a battle between the United States, NATO, and China, and a little bit of Russia, to control commodities. Commodities that can be used in all manner of industrial projects, works, equipment, manufactured goods. Most notably right now, the powers that be always tell us about how this can be used in green energy. Copper can be used in green energy for electrification needs. But of course, copper and all these other minerals are used in a variety of projects: stainless steel, construction, manufacturing, down to your kitchen goods. The kitchenware uses nickel. And Africa produces a tremendous amount of this metal. In Angola is the ending point, the terminus of a railway that the United States has said they will build to reach the interior of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is neither democratic nor republic, and until recently it wasn't called Congo, it was called Zaire. But they settled on Democratic Republic of the Congo, and also reach Zambia. Both of these countries produce a tremendous amount of copper. They produce cobalt. Cobalt is used to keep lithium-ion batteries that we have in our phones, in our laptops, and in our cars from running away, having a thermal runaway, because a lead-acid battery is very easy to control. It's very simple. Lead, acid, water, done. A lithium-ion battery is a software project. It's a chemistry experiment, and you need the cobalt to keep it from thermal runaway. We've seen those videos on the internet where somebody's pants catch on fire because their e-cigarette or their phone goes off. Well, cobalt is very necessary for that, but ladies and gentlemen, not only is it necessary for that, but it's very important in aerospace for turbines, aerospace, defense. So you can see how there are dual-use technologies. And The Chinese have been in Africa for a very long time, buying up mines, spending money, ingratiating themselves with the leaders of those countries. And the United States, maybe 5 years ago in 2018, there was a speech by former Vice President Mike Pence where he said, that's enough of that. We're sick of it. And we're now going to look at what China is doing in the metal space as more of a competition, as more as a confrontation. And so, most recently, the United States announced that they would spend up to is that right? $1 to $2 billion to fix this railway that already exists, that will end in Angola, reach into the DRC, and all the way into Zambia as well. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The Chinese are not standing back and sitting around to see what will happen, because they've announced they're going to spend their money on building the Tazara Railway, which will go in the opposite direction, will head east into the Indian Ocean, so that all the goods, all the metals, all the ore can be shipped to China. And that railway will be going through Zambia and Tanzania. Now, just a few months ago, ladies and gentlemen, the railway, the Atlantic Railway, the Lobito Atlantic Railway that goes through Angola, that President Biden thought it important to visit that country, well, it had a derailment. A sulfur car turned over. They had to fix it. I wonder if that's the sort of covert action that we're going to expect in the years ahead. Derailments, sabotage. I don't have any proof. I wasn't there. I have alibis. But I think it's interesting that these sort of notable events are taking place in this area in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, in Saharan Africa, or in the Sahel, another country that is allied with China is doing very well at the expense of France and the United States. And that's where we're going to tie into the Precious Metals Conclave that just took place in Miami just this week, actually it finished up, where industry analysts gathered from all around the world, refiners, miners, financiers, traders, they gathered in Miami, and they met and they said, what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of this industry? What are we going to come up with? And what's the forecast going to be? That's a fun little exercise. There's a poll all conference long. And what is the conference consensus going to be? And they came up with a number of $2,900 by the end of in 12 months, at the next conference, they said. That is about an 8.8% increase from the current price of gold, which is $2,676 US dollars trading right now. 8.8% increase. Is that a lot? No, it is not, ladies and gentlemen. No, it is not. We're going to talk about what a big increase is and why the analysts are forecasting an increase in a second. But let's go back to what's happening in Africa. In the Sahara region. The Sahel region is the kind of intermediate zone between the desert and the grasslands and jungles of sub-Saharan Africa. And there, the Russians are winning. Now, unlike in sub-Saharan Africa, where China appears to be ingratiating themselves by spending money, giving money, performing infrastructure projects with the political powers that be there. In Saharan Africa, Russia is ingratiating themselves by providing military expertise, military weapons, and they have done a fantastic job in turfing out the French, because the French had that area as part of their former empire, the West African French colonial empire. And in the last few years, there have been a number of coups. Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. There's an election coming up in 1 year in the Ivory Coast, the former French colony. Senegal recently just had an election this year where the results weren't quite coup-like, but the results went in the favor of a hard left, quasi-communist Marxist person who seems to have more affinity with Russia. What does this all have to do with precious metals? Ladies and gentlemen, the world is sanctioning Russia. And one way for them to finance the battle in the Ukraine is to get commodities, get oil from Libya, to get gold from Niger, to get uranium from Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali. These countries are working. These juntas, these military now led countries are working with Russia, sending gold in return for military equipment, mercenaries, and recently they signed a satellite deal where the communications will be provided by Russia. And this has happened very quickly. France has lost a lot of ground. And so gold is very important to Russia for financing their needs. And after this break, I'm going to talk about how to connect what's happening geopolitically in sub-Saharan Africa, Saharan Africa, this rush for commodities, including gold, and how we might be able to participate in that sort of boom, should there be one. We'll talk about it after this short break.
Hi, I'm Kathy Miller. Join me on Radio Cayman's Business Buzz every Tuesday and Thursday from 7:30 to 9 a.m. and the second and fourth Thursday of each month from 8:15 to 9 a.m.
Radio Cayman's Business Buzz. If you're a business owner
or part of one, Business Buzz is your source for the latest initiatives, developments, and varied viewpoints from the local business landscape. Be part of the Business Buzz with me, Kathy Miller, every Tuesday and Thursday morning on Radio Cayman.
The Business Buzz.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Message us at 925-3261 on WhatsApp today and get active with Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
This is
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands.
And now, more Money Sense.
Welcome back, everybody. My name is Emil, Kalinowski. I'm filling in for Simon Caudry. We are talking about geopolitics as well as the most precious metal, gold, because there just happened to be a conference in Miami this week regarding the precious metals industry. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a great powers conflict, and one of the battle zones, one of the battle spaces, battlefields, is the metals and mining industry. All this year and all last year, countries are stepping in and dictating who can do business with who. In Australia, in Canada, the governments are saying whether or not private companies can make deals with the Chinese. Now, the Russians are absolutely out of the question, but they have stepped in and told their companies, their private industries, that no, you cannot make this deal in another country with a foreign partner that happens to be Chinese. There's a number of examples with that. Why? Because there's this great power conflict. What is the West also doing? They're stepping in to finance these mines. The United States Pentagon, the United States Defense Department is funding mines, ladies and gentlemen. That is staggering. That is stunning. The Defense Department is in the mining business. Incredible. Now, some very interesting little divergence or paradox or contradiction has taken place in that the West, Canada, Australia, the United States, Europe, does not believe that gold and precious metals are critical minerals. They have disallowed transactions with quote-unquote their competitors, with the countries they are confronting, China, Russia, but they have allowed them in precious metals spaces. I know of two examples in the Ivory Coast and Ghana this past few months that Canada has waved through a partnership for investment in gold mines. I suppose that the West still does not believe that gold will be of importance in the coming battle, should it continue on the path that we are. But other countries that are on the other side are stepping in and trying to restrict gold exports. They're trying to hold them back. Kenya, for example, just this week announced the restriction of the export of raw gold. Mali told Barrick Gold that it better pay more money for the rights that it has in that country, that it owes the country of Mali $500 million extra dollars. And if they don't pay up, I'm sure something will happen to that mine. Burkina Faso said that they will be reviewing contracts when it comes to mining gold. And I will bet you that the contracts they will be reviewing are going to be of countries that are all members of NATO or the new Australia, UK, US alliance that's forming in the Pacific. Now, the East appears to value gold, as a critical mineral, whereas the West still does not. Perhaps that explains why the analyst consensus, which is, I would say, the LBMA, which is the group that hosted this conference in Miami this week, which stands for the London Bullion Market Association. I suppose it still has that Western bias. So Westerners believe that gold prices will only rise by a little bit less than 10%, 8.8% in the next year. Well, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that if you go back to 1968, March 1968, which is when gold started to trade freely again after it had been frozen in place for let's call it a century, but after the Second World War and after the Depression, gold prices were fixed as the Western Alliance needed to pay off all that debt. They fixed the price of gold with all the debt that came along with winning the war. They had to pay off all that debt, so they fixed the price of gold. They didn't want it to rise too much to show how much inflation was taking place in the background. Silver prices were rising during this time. But in March 1968, they simply couldn't hold the market back anymore, and they said, fine, we will let it trade freely from now on. We will not step in. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that if you take a look at any random 12-month period since March 1968, the average return is 10%. So the association, the London Bullion Market Association, and all its traders, refiners, and miners, everyone in the precious metals industry just said, sure, it sounds fancy. It'll almost be $3,000 by next year, $2,917. But they said it would only increase by 8.8%, less than the going average since March 1968. How many years is that? 32, 55? 56 years. We're going to have, ladies and gentlemen, taking a look around the world. Does it appear that everything is fine? That there isn't a great power battle taking place in sub-Saharan Africa, the Sahel, the East, Yellow Seas, the Red Sea, the Black Sea? There's a confrontation taking place. The West and the East will have to pay for this confrontation. That means money printing, money devaluation. That means very likely inflation on a monetary basis. And precious metals are one way, one life raft for us as we are caught up in these whirlpools and these whirlwinds and currents of history, for us to preserve some of our wealth. Now, when it comes to gold, silver, platinum, and palladium, there's a number of different options that we could all take as to how to invest in these metals. We could do so directly by buying the precious metal itself. Last time I was here on the radio, I met with a team right here, SWP. We have a local Cayman precious metal bullion dealer and vault, so SWP. But we could buy it ourselves online, EK trade. I'm not sure. There's a number of ways that we could do it. Gold is primarily the precious metal that has the most exposure to investment, right? About 6 out of every, I'm going to do some rough math here, but 6 out of every 14 ounces goes to jewelry. Another 4 out of every 4 ounces goes to actual coins and bars. And then central banks, 2 out of every 14 ounces. So let me just do the math here. 2 from the central banks, 4 from us retail buying gold and silver not silver, but coins and bars. That gets us up to 6. And then jewelry, about half the world buys jewelry for investment purposes. So that is, let's call it 9. So 9, 10 ounces out of every 14 that are produced each year would go to wealth preservation. Now that's totally different when it comes to silver. For example, silver, only 2 ounces out of 12 go towards physical investment. Yes, jewelry is another 3 ounces, jewelry and silverware. So you can say about 5 ounces out of 12 out of every year's production. I mean, there's a lot more than 12 ounces, but I'm just doing the math so that we're not talking of millions of ounces. 5 out of 12 goes to wealth preservation. The rest goes to industrial uses, solar panels, electric panels, electricity. Silver's a great conductor. Nuclear power uses silver. So more than half of silver is used for industrial uses. Platinum and palladium, very heavy use in industry, specifically one particular kind, the autocatalyst. For example, for palladium, 8 out of 10 ounces goes just to the autocatalyst industry. Another 1 ounce goes to other industrial uses. Jewelry and physical investment, a tiny portion of palladium is used for jewelry and physical investments like coins and bars. Platinum, there's a little bit more investment when it comes to jewelry and physical investment. 2 out of 8 ounces goes to jewelry and physical investment. The autocatalyst, that thing that cleans the exhaust out of internal combustion engines, that's 3 out of 8 ounces. And then industrial uses, other industrial uses, another 2 out of 8. Okay, so you can buy the physical metal, or you can invest in actual miners. When it comes to gold miners, the world's biggest include Newmont, Agnico Eagle, Barrick Gold, Polyus, Goldfields, Northern Star Resources, Anglo Gold, Ashanti, Kinross Gold, and of course you can look all these up during your free time. When it comes to silver, the world's biggest silver miners include Pan American Silver, Fresnillo, Industrias Peñoles, Hecla Mining, Buenaventura, Coeur Mining, First Majestic Silver. The platinum group metals combine both platinum, palladium, and something called rhodium. But if you're interested in those, Norilsk Nickel, Anglo-American, Impala Platinum, Sibanye Stillwater. And of course, there are also exchange-traded funds that act like a stock and are represented by physical silver. They sit between the gold miner and owning physical gold. So it's still an investment, a speculation that you can have on the stock market without owning the physical, but not necessarily get into the risks of mining. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to be running out of time, but again, the idea is that there is a great power competition taking place around the world. One of the areas, one of the battlefields that the great powers, NATO, Russia, China, have identified as a key battle space is the metals and mining industry. Others we've heard of, microchips, artificial intelligence, space. This one, metals and mining, is something that I do know about. It's very important. It's taking place around the world, and most notably, most visibly in Africa, which still seems up for grabs. And that's why we saw the President of the United States in his final hours make his first and only trip to Africa in his presidency to a single country, a country where the United States hopes to spend at least $1 billion to build a railway into the interior, into the heart of Africa, so that the metals, the gold, the copper, all the other kind of metals like copper, cobalt, can go to the United States and away from the competitors of the United States. We can participate in these tribulations, in these trials, by looking into the commodity space, most notably precious metals. I do hope you've enjoyed your time with me this morning. Drive safe out there, and remember, always wear your floaties when it's raining. Goggles, the best kind of goggles are Speedos. And if you're interested in participating in a 10-kilometer ocean swim, that will be on Pirates Weekend, I think the 17th of November. My name's Emil Kalinowski. Thank you, everybody, and I'll talk to you again in a few weeks.